Hello and welcome. Today we are going to do a little first week of the Tour de France recap with special guest Lawson Craddock.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Definitely. Lawson Craddock, of course, with EF Education First. He is gracing us with his presence in between two workouts today on the bike. Is that right?
Double down, double down.
Double day. What are you doing? What are you doing today?
This morning was just a kind of quick endurance ride. This afternoon, just trying to beat the heat a bit. So I'll get on the trainer, do a pretty intense trainer workout. So it's good to be back in Texas. The heat is zapping me for all it's worth.
It is over 100 degrees right now. I'm actually glad to hear you were on the trainer. I was a bit worried about you going out.
100,000, I don't know. It's hot.
It's
humid.
hot.
Yeah.
All right, but we got hot action in France, which we're going to talk about. Lawson is going to provide a little bit of insight. First big story, I think, of the first week of the Tour de France is the Jumbo-Visma team. They have been just incredible. They won the first two stages, a sprint with a surprise victory by Mike Tunison, and then they rolled the team time trial, a huge margin over second place. Lawson, of course, you've done a lot of work on time trials and team time trials this year. You kicked off your season with the team time trial victory in Colombia. Is that right, Colombia?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, could you tell me about what World Tour teams are doing these days to prepare for a team time trial?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been incredible to see Jumbo-Visma's domination of this year's tour. Definitely been the revelation of the first week. But a lot of work behind the scenes goes into the success that they have on the road races and also the team time trials. The team time trial is such a special discipline in the sport where you have to truly have at the tour 8 guys on the same page. But it also goes way beyond that too. You have to have 30 staff behind the scenes that have everything dialed each and every step of the way for the entire team. The work really starts years before, finding the proper equipment, fine-tuning the equipment, finding the right group of guys, getting the guys in the correct position to maximize speed over the course of the team time trials. And also, when you're going to the day of, getting everyone on the same page with warming up and reconning the course and mentally preparing everyone on that team for war, because that's really what a team time trial is about, getting the mental aspect and know you're going to suffer and pushing yourself harder than you could otherwise.
What is the effort like in a team time trial for just a rider in the line?
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful chaos. You have 8 guys that are truly on the limit. It's 27K or something, or maybe it was more of a 20-minute effort. And that for those 20 minutes, all those guys are 100% pegged. And you see how these team time trials operate. And sometimes they look like they're falling apart, but that's exactly where you need to be to maximize what you want to do to get the best possible result. The best team time trials I've done are where you finish and you think, wow, we royally screwed that one up. You get done, you're like, you've lost 3 guys along the way. Everyone's on their hands and knees trying to make it to the finish. Next thing you know, you set the fastest time, or you finish in the top 3, and things kind of actually turn out a bit better than you expected.
And when teams are practicing team time trials, are there training camps that are devoted to team time trialing, or how does everybody get together? You all live all over the place. How does everyone get together and actually fine-tune this?
For sure. I mean, the World Tour is a huge circus and a lot of moving parts. I know we, EF Education First, we had a team time trial camp in Girona about 10 days before the start of the tour. We had 9 guys there. There were going to be 2 of us that weren't selected, and another one was off racing at national championships. But we were just trying to, get used to riding at race pace on our proper equipment, because you just don't get to do that very often, and it's hard to get each and every guy on the same page. But we were also there, testing out some equipment. We pre-rode with 62 chain rings, which is kind of the first for all of us. The peloton, the equipment, everything's just getting faster and faster. And where 7 years ago, you could get by with the 54, 55. It just isn't going to cut it anymore. We're racing at 60K an hour, averaging close to that. So all of a sudden you have to start looking for each little advantage that you can just grab and kind of take into yourself and for the team to use to just push yourself just that little bit more. Because when you look at this year's tour team time trial, outside of Jumbo-Visma, there was 6 teams within 10 seconds. The margins are so close, and so each little fine-tuning detail that you can find can end up making a big difference.
That would have been a sight in Girona, just watching 9 pink Argyle guys just flying down at 60 km/h on open
it's crazy.
roads.
I mean, it is
what
a circus. We had the 9 riders. We had 3 team cars, one in front of us by about a minute, making sure just to call out anything in the road, cars, whatever. One immediately in front of us, just to also make sure nothing else came in. One behind us, and then we had probably about 10 to 12 staff members all along our course, trying to stop traffic and roundabouts, and it's chaos. But,
that is so funny.
These things that you can do, they go a long way.
Yeah, it clearly worked out for your team, because they really, really put out a great ride for that. And moving on, we're going to keep on the Jumbo-Visma train. I want to talk about Wout van Aert.
Yeah.
They have had 3 sprint victories in 3 separate stages with 3 different riders. Dylan Groenewegen, of course, is their tried and true field sprinter, but Wout van Aert, he got a 2nd place to Peter Sagan earlier in the race, and then he beat all of the pure sprinters. It was incredible. This is a cyclocross world champion multiple time, who's billed as a classic specialist, who is now dusting sprinters and sprint finishes at the Tour. What do you make of this rider?
Yeah, but I think we can also go back and say that Tunison was also a former world champion on cyclocross.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty incredible to see all these cross stars come across to the road and have all this success. It's been rough for us guys. I've been doing it for 5-10 years to fighting fighting tooth and nail every day, and can barely scrape a win. And these guys are coming off winning classics and monuments and whatever. But yeah, it's been incredible to see a guy like Wout van Aert just have the success that he had. I don't think it surprised really anyone this tour, just with how he was riding previously in this year, Strade Bianche or Dauphiné, he was phenomenal. That being said, your first Tour de France it's hard. There's no other race quite like it in the world, and so a lot of times you see riders in the first Tour just struggle, because it's truly a different level, and nothing you can do can really prepare. But it just goes to show you his mentality, and all of Jumbo-Visma's mentality as well. Mike Tunison on the first day, you could, when your sprinter crashes and you're the guy that you've planned for and worked for all year for this sprint almost, when he goes down, it's super easy, and no one's going to blame you just to switch off and say, okay, we're going to ride it off for another day. But for him to keep fighting that all the way to the finish and end up taking the stage win, just shows you how focused they are at this year's tour. You saw that the next day of the team time trial, and you saw that again yesterday with Wout van Aert taking the sprint victory. It's pretty incredible, just to see the true domination.
Yeah, the emotions on Jumbo-Visma have got to be pretty good on this rest day that we're in today. Let's go on and talk about another pretty special rider, Julian Alaphilippe. He has been a treat to watch in this year's Tour de France. He took the yellow jersey on stage 3. It was lifted off his shoulders by Giulio Ciccone, but Alaphilippe really wasted no time. 2 days after he lost the yellow jersey, he attacked again and took it back. You've raced with Alaphilippe for quite a while, haven't you?
Yeah, we're the same age, and I've raced against him pretty much my entire time racing over in Europe since I was junior, U23, and now in the professional ranks. When we were racing as under 23s, no one really expected him to turn into this type of superstar rider. He was a great rider, and he could really, really race his bike. But now I think he's turned himself into a marquee rider of the peloton, which is pretty incredible to see that transformation.
Did he race in the same style where he'd just send it on attacks late in races? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so many times that you watch him race and you think, what is he doing? And he's been able to get away with that just because he's so talented. He's still lacking that like true GC win, that can take him to the next level. But when you watch him race and you talk to him and you see him in the peloton, you can tell he doesn't care about the next day. He only, it's a little cliche, but he only races, that day and lives in that moment, and that reflects in his racing style. He goes flat out every single day, and if he blows, he blows. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here. I think, honestly, we have seen a bit of a reserved Julian Alaphilippe for this year's tour, which is definitely saying something. I think, last year he really wanted that yellow jersey, and in the first couple of days he got caught up in a crash, and those kind of hopes were dashed. This year, you can see the motivation that he wants the yellow jersey. He wanted it early, and he wants to hold on for it as long as he could. But even on the day that he lost it, he didn't panic. He never threw caution to wind to try and get it back, or to try and close those final 6-7 seconds to keep the jersey. He rode within himself, and had a great day on that climb, and knew that there was going to be a chance in the future to take it back.
Yep. Now, I'm sorry I got to do this to you, Lawson. We got to talk about Stage 10. Stage 10. That was yesterday. That was a rough day. Crosswinds and EF really kicked it off. They were aware of the crosswinds, and they were the first team to try to take advantage of it, and it kind of blew up in their face. About 5 kilometers later, they did force a pretty substantial split in the group, but the wind, it didn't seem like it was hitting the peloton just hard enough yet to completely shatter things. They did catch out George Bennett. Poor George Bennett. I have no idea why George Bennett was getting bottles from his team car at this point. That decision is probably going to haunt him for a lot of years, because he is now well out of the GC running. He can thank EF Education first for that. But EF, they were drilling it on the front. Wasn't quite working. The damage wasn't being done to justify the effort. They drifted back in the peloton. And then DeCuna Quickstep, a K or two later, they took up where EF left off. The race went through a tight roundabout. It pinched off, went from a pretty wide road to a very, very narrow section, and it looked like we couldn't see what was going on exactly. We lost cameras in that section, but you come out of that, and there was just a big split, and EF missed out.
Yeah, I mean, crosswinds are so tricky, and also quite frustrating for about 80% of the peloton constantly. It was definitely tough to see the boys miss out on that final split yesterday. It's not for lack of trying or lack of effort that they missed out. Sometimes it just doesn't quite work out exactly how you want it. And in crosswinds, it's really all about timing. It's not all about timing; it's about timing and luck. And at the Tour de France, you need an incredible amount of both of that. Unfortunately, yesterday it seems like they just chose maybe just the wrong moment just by a touch. But I think it goes to show you the true level of the peloton at the Tour de France. I think in any other race, the peloton would have been absolutely shattered. They would have had 4 or 5 guys in the front group, and everything would be fine and dandy. But at the Tour de France, where everyone is racing at their absolute highest level, everyone can hold on for just that little bit extra and a little bit longer. And I think that caused a little bit of frustration or a little bit of confusion in the group where you're driving on the front trying to split it, and then you think, okay, everything should be working in our favor. We have the wind, we have the road, we have the open fields. It should be split in pieces. Maybe it's not going to happen. And so that's when it's easy just to maybe turn off just a little bit and drift back to a spot that you wouldn't be. And that's where Ineos and Quickstep really kind of make their money is in moments like that where they use other teams' tactics to their advantage, and then they just turn them against them.
Yeah, DeCuna and Ineos were both very, very opportunistic in that moment, and That's another thing is everybody is so fit and so fast at the Tour de France. It's so hard to create that split, but when that split happens, there's just no coming back from it. And we saw a lot of really, really good riders get caught out. EF, of course, had Rigoberto Urán, who was behind the split. That was the big loss for the day. But he was riding with Jakob Fuglsang of Astana and Thibaut Pinot of FDJ. Those were the three really big miss-outs of Rigoberto's group. Richie Porte, he was further back. This caught a lot of riders out going into the rest day. You know, Quick-Step, Ineos, they're going to be pretty happy with how things are, but there are going to be a lot of hungry teams, I think, coming into the second week of the Tour de France.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the race is still wide open. Obviously, you have Alaphilippe, who's, you know, a minute ahead of everyone else, but, you know, from second to 7th or 8th is all within 30 seconds, 20 seconds. So I think we'll see a lot of fireworks coming up. The Tour really gets going now. The first week is always maybe has one or two challenges, but it's more the stress that takes the toll on the peloton as opposed to the actual terrain. So now as you know the Pyrenees and the Alps start to come, I think we'll see a lot of shakeup in the overall. And now the true excitement starts to really hit the Tour.
So, all right, I'm just going to get your insight here. Rigoberto Urán, he is 3 minutes and 18 seconds down on Julian Alaphilippe. That is just over 2 minutes down on Geraint Thomas. You think Urán's still in it?
I think a win is definitely going to be really challenging, you know, for Rigo. Obviously pulling for him and hoping he can do it, but I think when you concede 3 minutes in the first week, it's really going to be tough. But I know that the team's goal was a final podium, and you never really know what's going to happen. I don't think he's out of true contention for that. It's definitely going to be tough. I think it's pretty realistic to see 2 Ineos guys on the final podium, and so maybe it's going to be 6 or 7 guys fighting for that final spot.
Yeah, Ineos is looking very strong for all the naysayers after Chris Froome crashed out of going to the Tour de France. We also lost Mikel Landa to a crash in stage 10. He was in that lead. He made the lead split and crashed out of it, went down to the third group on the road. Richie Porte, he is just about 4 minutes down. Romain Bardet, my pick for the overall of this year's Tour de France. I have to say, I think I have to write him off now. He's 3 minutes and 20 seconds out. That was a disappointment for me. It is, the top 10 though is right up there, and it's going to be an interesting next 2 weeks.
For sure. I think a guy that could really do something the rest of the Tour is Adam Yates. Typically, if you can get through the first 10 stages of the Tour, and no one's really said your name, it's a pretty big success. Mitchelton hasn't had to do any work. They won a stage with Daryl Impey, which is pretty incredible. But other than that, you really haven't talked about him. But Adam has stayed out of trouble. He's made every split, but he's done it quietly. He hasn't wasted really any energy in getting there. So in those efforts that you can stay away from in the first 10 days, they generally pay off in the last 10 days. So I think he could definitely be a name to look for.
Adam Yates, hot take from Lawson Craddock. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us here. And
thanks for having me.
Good luck with your second bike ride today.
Appreciate it. Thanks.